welcome to Bow Ties Sometimes Cool. Myself, Ashley, and Ed. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Ash. How's things this evening?
Very good. Quite hot here, though. Quite hot. Shouldn't complain, though. And we've also got James this evening, the third bow tie. Good evening, James.
Good evening, chaps. How are we doing?
Very good, thanks. And we're joined by another wonderful guest. We're continuing this fantastic run of guests, and well, actually, I'm going to ask you to introduce our fantastic guest this evening, Ed, because I know that you got a bit of an intro there and some
Yeah, I mean,
questions. That's how it usually works
yes.
with us, doesn't it?
Well, tonight, for whenever this goes out, we are on the 10th of May when we're just under 5 hours away from a new series of Doctor Who. So that's all very exciting. And we're also very excited to have this gentleman with us tonight. I mean, our guest tonight is a multi-talented chap, an actor, director, writer, producer, and as I see him, one of the three torchbearers for the new generation of fandom. The other two being Beth Axford and TARDIS Monkey. He's a cosplayer. He's an influencer. Our guest tonight is the fabulous Dominic G. Martin. Good evening, Dominic.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. That's
And really,
wonderful. Oh,
thank you so much for joining us as well. It's a real pleasure to have you on our little show. Um,
no, it's a pleasure. No, that intro was very sweet. I appreciate that a lot.
not a problem at all. It's how I see it. I mean, 90s when the program went off the air, there were the sort of the torchbearers for fandom, the likes of Paul Cornell and Gary Russell, etc. And I
Hmm.
always think if the show ever went off the air, you, TARDIS Monkey, and Beth Axford would be like the Avengers and come together and keep the flame alive in the wilderness years and suddenly be in charge of it in sort of 40 years' time.
Well, those
It,
two are certainly wonderful people as
yeah.
well, and no, they're really cool. And honestly, to be seen like that is just is it's very honourable. So thank you. Honestly, I mean, if it did
Oh,
ever go under, I would do my best to save it. Trust me, I would do my best. Not sure how far I'd get, but
yeah.
I'd give it a good go.
I'm sure, as I said, with fandom, it's in very, very, very safe hands, which is fantastic. And I'm going to start off by talking about fandom as well. It's a big thing. I got involved. Got involved. I first became a fan in 1975 when I saw the first episode of Robot sitting in my Tide, that's Welsh for grandfathers, lounge on a black and white TV. And my earliest memory is actually of anything, I think, is the cliffhanger to episode 2 of Robot. But what about yourself? When did you become involved in the wonderful world of Doctor Who? Was there a pivotal moment when a switch flipped in young Dominic's brain and the world was never the same again?
Well, the switch kind of was a it was a gradual flip for me. So back in like 2005, early 2005, on UK Gold, I remember specifically, they were playing through Trial of a Time Lord, and my mum was a Doctor Who fan, and she decided, you know what, let's give it a go. Let's give it a watch. So she decided to introduce me to it. Like she had been bringing me up with a steady diet of Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, and Star Trek: The Original Series. So she decided to introduce something new into the mix, and that being a little bit of classic Doctor Who. And I specifically remember my first memory of Doctor Who being Colin Baker's Daleks, Sontaran, Cybermen speech for the end of The Ultimate Foe Part 1. And it was quite a dynamic moment because I was like, oh my God, what's this show? This is very interesting. He's got a funny coat. Um, and I was like, just so enwrapped engulfed in it, really. And unfortunately, didn't get to see part two until way later. Uh, but fortunately, the show was already well announced it was coming back, already had a date and everything. And so mum decided, we're gonna watch that. And so then I remember my first episode of the modern series was The End of the World because we were on holiday at the time that Rose was airing. So I watched End of the World, and then I was like, yeah, this is great. The flip started to really crank up. And then I watched through the entire of Eccleston's run, and then it fully started into maximum as soon as Parting of the Ways did. So I went to my local library and I got all the classic Who DVDs and then just started binge watching a lot. And it was a very fun late summer. Uh, my parents would wonder if they would ever see me again, frankly. So,
That's incredible, sort of to be introduced to Doctor Who by Colin Baker and for Colin to hook you. That's absolutely fantastic.
hmm,
Yeah, wonderful stuff. And it leads me on to, you becoming a fan and, as I said, one of the leading lights of fandom. I mean, as an older fan, my generation never really did cosplay. always tended to be if someone dressed up for a convention, they were sort of, who's that odd bod over there? There was a sort of looked at with sort of, that's strange. But your generation has absolutely embraced the power and the joy of cosplay. How did you become involved in cosplay, and how do you choose the characters that you want to portray?
Well, I mean, my first experience with cosplay was really, again, I can attribute this to my mum, because she made me my first ever Tom Baker scarf, and because she found the pattern online and was like, "I'm going to knit that all out for you," and all of a sudden, I have this very long scarf which could wrap around me several times, and a couple of years after that, after I've been wearing this to like conventions, just the scarf by itself, uh, then I decided, you know what, I can turn this into maybe a natural costume. So I dug through my mum's wardrobe, and found like this red suit jacket, this little cardigan, and some. I used my own trousers, etc. And then I had the very homebrew version of the outfit he wore in Robot and most of season 12. And I was like, yeah, I could I could get into this. This is pretty fun. And like then I took it to Collectomania Milton Keynes for my first proper convention experience. I'd already been going to Collectomanias previous, but this was the first time I'd ever gone in a full cosplay outfit. And it was very cool because I could meet other cosplayers as well and get immersed in that world and make friends. Some of the friends that I made, I still know to this day, which is obscene, really. Like I met so many lovely people over the course of that. Because that's what really drew me to the cosplay community, how friendly people were. And it's just such a bizarrely like they're all very it's all clothes. You're bonded together by clothing worn by a fictional TV character. And it's on paper, it sounds bizarre. Speaking it out, it sounds bizarre, but it's just the story of my life. The cosplay community is definitely what got me extremely immersed in the world of Doctor Who. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have made many of the friends that I know today. So, if anything, getting into cosplay was one of the best decisions I ever made.
And it's quite well documented as well that you actually make your own costumes. Is there any costume that you've made that you are most proud of?
My pride and joy has to be my season 18 Fourth Doctor outfit because that was the first costume that I could really say I put my mark on because the scarf, I knitted that, taught by my mum. I knitted that from head to toe. It took about two tries, yeah, two full starts, but got there in the end. And I am very proud of that scarf. I love that whole outfit. I mean, season 18 is classic seasons ever. And that outfit, adore it. So I needed it. And I just decided to do it and I did it. So I was very, very proud of that. Very proud of that.
Fabulous. And from doing the cosplaying and getting to meet people in fandom, you went on to play what I think of as the internet sensation that is the Purple Doctor. Can you tell us a bit about the Purple Doctor, how it happened, what it is for people who haven't seen it, and
Mm.
where they can watch it?
Okay, well. So the Purple Doctor, it's a project that I've spent at least a good 7 or so years of my life on at this point. I've been involved with DW 2012 since 2014, more directly involved since 2017, and it has been joy. Because obviously I work with Luke Newman and Megan Shirley, both very dear friends of mine, and as well as Ben Walden on screen. And it's just been really quite a journey to behold because we've been working on filming the series for 5 years. I should probably explain what it actually is because I'm about to get on a spiral. So it's basically our Doctor Who fan series, our interpretation of what Doctor Who can be. This is something that loads of people have done, and loads of people love to put their own spin on what they feel Doctor Who would be, what they would be like as the Doctor, what they want their ideal Doctor to be. And this is our interpretation of it. And I was following on from Luke, who was the Little Red Doctor, the predecessor, and he was the one who invited me into the series, as obviously a showrunner, back in 2014, because I met him at Birmingham MCM, and we became friends ever since then. I was introduced to him, and yeah, we became talking, and he was like, just one day, he asked me if I would like to become the doctor after him, and I was like, hell yeah. And he could see me as the doctor. He felt that I was very doctorish, and I was like, well, I'll try. So it was honestly spent time developing the stories and scripts and how I would play the character and the costume of the character. We worked on all that, and then in 2017 we started. I filmed my first scene at the end of the episode, The Final Enigma, which is part of his fourth series, and then I started filming for my first episode proper after doing the regeneration as well at the end of his movie, Fall of the Doctor. So there's thing is, you can jump into my stuff, but obviously his stuff is in the process of being remade as well. So there's a clean jumping on point either way. But no, it has been such a fantastic experience because we've now got 7 episodes out. The grand finale is in the editing phase, and I can't wait for everybody to see it because it's just been so joyous to put my own spin on this character, and people have, for the most part, received it well. I know it's gone down well with a lot of people, and that fills my heart with joy because he's got a lot of me in him, and I just love portraying him. And if I can bring a smile to someone's face in doing so, then you know what? I think I've done my job because I just want to pay homage to this character who I've idolized for the past 19 years of my life. So do my best.
Fantastic. And where can we watch the Purple Doctor if we want to?
So it'll be on YouTube on the DW 2012 YouTube channel, and it'll be my first episode is called Doctor Who Fan Film Series 5 Episode 1 How Time Flies, and we've got 7 episodes out, so you can dive into any one if you fancy, but of course starting with Series 5 Episode 1, it's perfectly fine. So yeah, I would recommend give it a go. And also, if you like what you see with the series, feel free to check out the Little Red Doctor as well, who starts with Series 1 Episode 1 onwards. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Marvelous. We'll certainly be doing that, and we'll put a link to that in the description in the video below as well. Thank you very much for that, Dominic. I'm going to take you back in time in a little bit now to those dark days of the pandemic. Now, during those times, one of the very few chinks of light was the tweet-alongs, and you wrote a minisode for the very last one called The Genuine Article. How did you get involved?
Oh well, thing is, it was my dear friend Will Grantham's brainchild. He is one of my best mates, and he is also my flatmate. So he very much had words with Emily Cook about that because of the tweet along, and they created the idea of the Genuine Article. So I was tasked with writing it, he was tasked with animating it, and our other flatmate Sam was tasked with scoring it. And of course, we got Elliot Crosley involved as the Doctor, and we got John Coleshaw as the Absorbaloff, which was a hell of a get. John is such an incredible person to work with, as is Elliot. Elliot is a joy, and Emily was so accommodating and great to chat to about it. And of course, Will was brilliant. Sam was brilliant. They're all brilliant. I'm just very, very happy to have worked with them on this. So we put together that little short, and I just really wanted to do something that would pay homage to Love and Monsters and also Will's creation. And I think it went very well. I really like how it turned out, and it was definitely different in terms of the things I've worked on, and I think be very special because of that, because of the circumstances, and we just really wanted to do something special to commemorate. Like we saw all the previous like little mini shorts that have been going on throughout the tweet-alongs, and they were incredible. Like there's all sorts of incredible ones. Like it was just such a fantastic time to be a fan. The community spirit really came together. It's just superb. So it was a joy to be a part of it in any small way.
Fabulous. And you mentioned there, it's got links to Love and Monsters. Say John Culshaw plays the Absorbaloff.
Mm,
Love and Monsters, quite a polarizing episode. Is probably the
mm,
timeless children of its day. I
yeah.
think you had people who loved it, such as myself, and people who really didn't get it. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I mean, how did it feel to be writing a sequel for a not universally loved episode? And how did you put your spin on the characters?
Oh, I like kind of doing I like approaching subjects which as you say aren't universally loved, because I think that's where you can really have some fun. You can really, because I feel sometimes with episodes that have a bad reputation, the expectation is less. So that gives you more of a chance to really put a spin on it and hope to God that it goes well. You can be very experimental. There we go. Not experimentational. That's not a word. And no, so putting their own spin on the characters, I wanted to keep them close to their on-screen counterparts, because I mean, it wasn't strictly the same Absorbaloff that we saw on the television version of the television Doctor Who. It was his father, so we had a bit more liberty on where to take the character. But while John Culshaw still did a superb Peter Kay impersonation, so I think we played it more for laughs than it would have what that it was done in the TV episode, and I think it worked in his favor. And though I must say, I do really like the TV episode. I am one of those people that really like it, and I think it is one of those misunderstood pieces. And hopefully, well, I mean, it's already going through a hell of a reevaluation. It has been going through a reevaluation over the years, and people are really enjoying it. So you know, there's no harm in more love for Love and Monsters.
No, it's one of those episodes I think that you can't just watch it passively. You've got to engage with it, and you've got to understand what's going on. Like, that is
Mm,
Elton an unreliable narrator, and
yeah,
did it really
and
happen?
that's the thing, and it's essentially a commentary on fandom as well. And I really think he was daring, and it's kind of ironic because, as you say, a lot of the people who complained about it probably didn't get it, but were possibly the target audience at the same time. So, it is what it is.
It is what it is. And from writing the Lockdown series to writing for Big Finish,
Mm,
last night I re-listened to the brilliant I, Chameleon, in which you took another not universally loved character in Chameleon and took him on as I looked at it, heard it, a sort of Pinocchio style, pure sci-fi journey. Um,
mm.
why Chameleon, and how did the story evolve?
Well, I worked with David Richardson and John Dorney on the idea, and I pitched them the chameleon idea, and they were very open to it, and I was like overjoyed, because I've always had a fascination with chameleon, like robots and things. That's some of my favorite things in sci-fi, like um iRobot, love that. Stuff like the Terminator. I adore the first two Terminator movies. And in all the various shades in science fiction alone, Metropolis, for example, as well. Um, I just love robots. So the comedian was always he was underused, and that's not even the fault of the production team. Just the prop didn't work. So they were very limited what they could do with him. But Big Finish really like gave him a drive, gave him like a full character arc and everything, and really did him justice. And I wanted to see if I could put a little coda on that, something to just lead into his big finale on screen. And I was really happy to be given the chance to do that, because I feel like there's never, again, like Love and Monsters, there's no such thing as too much love for Chameleon, because no one ever gives him love. So it's just like, why not? And so I've worked on the idea for a while and wrote first drafts and everything and just tried to get it on paper. Like the idea of him uh essentially having the human experience, having this robot feel what it is to actually be a human instead of just pretending to be them all the time, but just having the actual experience. That's something I felt like he needed, something that I could essentially workshop in gifting him with. Um, be able to have that actual like immersion of what it's like, for better or for worse. And in this case, it was a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. But I just feel it was a very interesting direction and possibly a natural conclusion for the character to reach that apex of actually becoming part of humanity, even for a little bit. So it's something I'm very proud of.
Yeah, I mean, listening to it last night, I took myself away, put my headphones on, put my phone away from myself so I wouldn't be disturbed. And the moment that really got to me, because I'm a very emotional chap, I cry
Mm.
at the drop of a hat. The bit that absolutely struck me was where Chameleon's in the monologue is describing that he's actually breathing for the first time rather than pretending to breathe, and he can feel a heartbeat because he's genuinely human. It's
Yeah.
really moving. It's fantastically done.
Thank you. I'm glad you thought so. I just really had to think like all these new experiences that he'd be feeling for the first time, because obviously, even when he's pretending to be a human on screen, he is still the robot. It's still just a shell. But having that actual like spirit, just the bodily functions, everything, hunger, all that jazz, anger, emotions, properly this time. It's just so much there that the human experience, it can't be limited. It's got to actually like he's got to feel everything, and I just really just is just trying to think about how they would come to an unemotional robot who's really just stuck in his own head half the time, and it really got him out there, I think.
Most definitely. And I mean, the bonus to this, dear listeners, is if you don't even have to pay for this story to hear it. If you buy 40, the first of the Peter Davison 40th anniversary box set, 40 volume one, it comes as a bonus with that. So
Mm.
go and buy it. Buy it now. You will not regret it.
And
Um,
I have to say, Dan Starkey's reading was a phenomenal as well. He's such a good narrator, honestly, and his work on it really, really elevated it further. And I'm forever grateful to everyone who worked on this, everyone who contributed. It meant a lot to me as my first Big Finish writing credit for it to go just that well for me. So very
yeah,
grateful.
saying about Dan Starkey there, his Turlo, I had to check the credits at the end that it wasn't Mark Strickson. He was so good. He got the
Yeah,
inflections perfect. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's so dead on.
Yeah. Yes, so then Dominic, you went on to work as a producer for Big Finish, actually producing Purity Undreamed, which is quite squares the circle really with with you getting into Doctor Who through
Mm.
Colin Baker and now working producing Colin Baker. That's amazing. You also produced some of the companion chronicles, and it's a real dream come true job for any fan. I mean, how did you get into producing, and does having fandom in your DNA make your job easier or more difficult?
Well, I got into producing because David Richardson, out of the blue, just sent me a message on Twitter at the end of 2021, I believe. Uh, and or was it 2020? Oh, my timelines. Uh, but yeah, around that period. And he was like, no guarantees, but would you be interested in doing some trainee production on the Peloton box set? Uh, and I was like, yes. So I was very much enamored. It was because of one of the reasons was because how I had handled my fan audio series Remnants, Doctor Who Remnants, which was one that I worked on through lockdown. So I did a fair few episodes of that, put a casting call and everything, and I think it just got kind of noticed at the right time. And I was asked, and I'd been working with Big Finish ever since, and it's been a pleasure and a privilege to be working alongside so many people that I respect, that I have looked up to in my childhood, but now can just view them as my superiors, which is a very odd feeling. Uh, But no, so yes, I have been an assistant producer on the Sixth Doctor with the wonderful, wonderful Jack Rayner, who is such a wonderful person, love her dearly, great to work with, and she has done such a great job of the range, and working with her and Colin and Nicola and Bonnie and Pards it's just been mental. It's just absolutely mental. One of the best moments of my career was actually being there for one of the recordings of the Quinn Dilemma, which was the 40th anniversary story for Colin. And being there as he cut his cake and just seeing how happy he was just so astonishing. Like he was technically my first Doctor. So just seeing that was just such a pleasure and a privilege and a very happy moment for me as a fan. And but in terms of whether having fandom makes producing difficult, I think mm, it the job itself is difficult by default. And I try to put the fan side of myself aside and strictly keep it professional because it is well, I mean, it would be completely and utterly wrong to start fanboying in the middle of recording because that would just be unprofessional and ludicrous. These people are human beings too. This is not a place for autographs. So, no, I've always just tried to keep that division within myself. Like there's the fan and then there's the professional. And when you're recording or when you're producing, it's got to be strictly professional. And in that respect, it makes the job like a job. It is a job at the end of the day. Is like not just a job, not just, but it's a job that I'm very privileged to have. But it is at the end of the day a job. And I've got to do my best that I can in that, and I can't let any of my fan side compromise that, and that is something I stick to very rigidly. At least I like to think.
Fantastic. I mean, as well as producing, you've actually gone on to be on the judging panel for the annual Paul Spragg Memorial Competition.
Yes.
Um, it's what advice really would you give to new aspiring writers who think, this Big Finish, it's easy. I'll give it a go. What would you advise them?
I would say if no matter how ludicrous you think your idea is, give it a go, put it on paper because you'd never know. Someone may, even though every idea in fiction has already been used, you may stumble upon one idea that somehow hasn't been used. And that might be the one that clinches you the win. Because the winner that I oversaw was fantastic, had a beautiful idea. So to new writers, just keep writing, write as many things as you can, no matter how bad you may think it may be, you put in ideas out there, and that's what you got to do. And you can take those ideas, you can look at it at a later date, and you can be like, I can take something from that and make it into something I consider to be good. So it is just you'll never get there if you don't try, and you got to keep trying. And even if it feels hopeless at times, because in creative industries, it can very well seem hopeless at times, because artists do struggle, but artists also have a very good resilience in my experience, and they never give up. So keep on trekking is what I can say, and just even if every experience is never wasted, and you've always got to keep putting your best foot forward as much as you can, I'd say. So just stick at it, but make sure as well that you have some things in the background that can allow you to keep doing that. Like, Big Finish isn't my full-time job by any stretch of the imagination. I work in the construction industry, uh, and that is my full-time gig, and that allows me to live. It allows me to pay the rent, pay the bills, whilst I can also work on Big Finish in my spare time. So always make sure you have a backup option, at least to begin with, until you start getting like uber successful. But you always got to keep a valid skill set. Like you got to make sure that you have backup options upon backup options. Just make sure you make enough money to live, and then the world will hopefully mold itself to your image in that sense, and you can just do your best, but don't, as they say. Oh, I'd also say make sure you started off as a hobby and don't go full in as a career. Make sure build up to it being a career because you just don't throw all your eggs in one basket.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. And then there's just one more question for me, and I'll hand over to the wonderful Mr. James Sylvester. What is next for Dominic G. Martin? Are there any projects you have that you can actually talk about?
Well, there is naturally the grand finale of DW 2012 Series 5, which is upcoming, the Purple Doctor's next adventure, the part two of Time Crisis, which is going to be a huge adventure. It's going to be a huge episode. It's been taken months in the editing suite, full of VFX, full of like fight sequences, etc. It's got all sorts of ribbly wobbly timey wimey stuff, and I'm just so hyped for everyone to see it. Uh, Obviously, I was assistant producer on the Fugitive Doctor Adventures, which will be coming out next year with Big Finish. It was an absolute privilege to work with Joe, but I can say no more. And as well as that, later in the year, I hope to pick up again uh, my fan series, Doctor Who Remnants, for another series of little Inside Number 9 inspired adventures. And I also, on my TikTok, I also won a quiz series called the Doctor Who Speed Quiz, which I've been going through the entire new series on TikTok, and that has been a joy to have everyone play along with that. So basically, it's like usually 8 questions in roughly about a minute, and you can give it a go and answer and see if you can guess all the facts about your favorite episodes right or wrongly, or you can just tune in to learn something. Who knows? So yeah,
That's
that's me.
that's wonderful, Dominic. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to my nonsense. I will now hand you on to
Oh,
the magnificent Mr. James Sylvester to probably ask some far better questions than mine. So I'll pop you on to
Oh,
James now.
shush.
Thank you very much, Dominic.
thank you, Ed.
I'm afraid the magnificent James isn't here. You're stuck with me, to paraphrase a certain
Well, you are the magnificent James.
Oh, bless you. I've been fascinated. It's been really lovely listening to your insights and your experiences. Dom, it's again, we thank you for your time of being here, but it's just been a real pleasure
Of course.
listening to that. Now, there's no reason why anybody would know this, but least of all you. But I think the first time I encountered you was actually face to face back in Manchester. It would have been before
Yes.
COVID. I always used to whine a little. Manchester was always really badly served for Doctor Who convention and anything
Mm,
really like that. And we had, for a couple of years, we had one called Warp. Um, that was lovely. And I think Colin and Peter and Paul McGann came down for the first one. The second
yeah.
one moved locations, and Sylvester and Sophie were there, and Fraser Hines. It was great. I used to take my son along. He was
Mm,
younger then, and he didn't mind being dragged along. And I remember him being fascinated by seeing you, um, striking figure in your season 18 burgundy outfit, and think, oh wow, fantastic. And I'd seen him on YouTube, and he was absolutely taken with you. So that was lovely. But I was just interested, now that things have moved on, you're working with Big Finish now. How's that changed your how you experience conventions? You've obviously got, I suppose, more of a responsibility now, given that you represent, whether you're appearing for them or not, or you represent the organization. Does that change how you enjoy them?
I would say I keep with conventions. I haven't really changed my approach to them. I always go there to say hi to friends, make new friends, and look around. And I really just enjoy going to them when it goes. Like I remember Warp. We used to be at the Printworks, right? And then I
Mm.
can't remember where it was after.
It was at
Uh,
the university, one of the university buildings, I think, the
that's it.
second year.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Which I thought was an odd change. I like the Printworks. But it was those events are lovely. because you get to meet such like-minded individuals. And I mean, of course, over the years, the amount of people who know who I am has increased, I guess. But I just I like to meet people if they know who I am. I love to meet them because, it's cool for me to put faces to names. Because I see a lot of people message me online, and it's nice to be able to say hi in the flesh. And that's the best thing about these conventions. Like my main goal for them is to go and be social and buy some meaningless tat. So it's just brilliant in that regard. Like I definitely get what you say about responsibility, but at the same time, I just it's just gotta go and have fun, really, and have fun. And I'm not a troublemaker, so I don't do anything stupid. I mean, one day I might decide, you know what, we'll have a little drink. No, no, I wouldn't. But no. But they're just so it's endearing. It's just very endearing, those experiences, and just yeah. I'm just a people person at heart, really.
That's lovely. Again, kind of inspiring that whatever changes you're going through, you're staying true to yourself and you're enjoying it. Sorry. And I'm going to continue that theme of, I suppose, change and evolution, even though I'm fascinated by your answer for how you approach the conventions. Thinking about how you take that approach to your writing. You're very experienced now in working on licensed, unlicensed, Doctor Who, your own projects, working with Big Finish. Obviously, I suppose the conditions and structure of writing for Big Finish will be somewhat different.
Hmm.
But do you consciously approach a writing project with them in a different way? Do you feel that your own process has changed when you moved into that world?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, really gotta be as good as you possibly can. And the thing that's different with I'd say Big Finish as opposed to unlicensed like fan media and stuff like that is because um a lot, a lot of the fans I do in terms of my own writing is not script edited by someone else. Is usually me going through the drafts and tweaking and tweaking and tweaking until it's up to a standard that I feel is acceptable. With Big Finish, there are multiple eyes on the product, and that makes it, in ways there's a bit more pressure, but in ways you feel, no, I am being tutored here, and people are showing me where I've gone wrong, and I can take this experience to learn. Like John Dorney, again, fantastic person for that. He's a fantastic script editor I've worked with, and such a such a teacher, such a great teacher. And as well as Jonathan Morris as well, who's also helped me with scripts and whatnot in the past. Um, it feels there is a lot that, because obviously you're making a product that is going to be sold. You got to really make sure that stuff is ace, at least as amazing as you can possibly make it. And having people guide you on that process is really, really helpful. And it really helps you feel like, even if you feel sometimes that you've fallen behind a bit, they kind of pick you up, really. So working with the people at Big Finish is definitely helpful in my learning as a writer.
Excellent. I imagine it, yeah, I suppose in my own limited experience, I used to hate working with editors, with editors when you're writing a book for a publisher and they'd come back and they've destroyed your draft and they've taken all the bits out that you really liked. But it's a very mature and very professional approach. They actually know they're guiding me, they're
Mm.
supporting me, and they're helping make the story
Yeah,
as good as it can be. And yeah, I know from a lot of people talk about some of the
that's
names you've mentioned there as being very supportive in that. So that's
yeah,
really lovely
exactly.
to
And
hear.
I'd like to think there was no room for arrogance in that sort of field.
Mm.
Because I mean, some of the stuff sometimes you get the notes through and you think, as you say, I really like that. But sometimes writers can be guilty of being a bit indulgent. And if something can be removed, if the script editor deems it to be removed, it's probably being removed for a good reason. And unless you have really feel so strongly about it and can justify it, then it's probably best it goes.
Absolutely. Um, this is kind of a follow on to one of the things Ed was talking about, and I completely respect your answer in terms of how you separate fan Dominic from professional Dominic. I think it's mainly to do with writing, but I think you can apply it for the other kind of works that you do as well.
Mm.
In any genre, any writer with a gig, with a project, they're going to want to produce the best story they can, but they're not always going to necessarily be steeped in that fandom or a die-hard fan of that
Mm.
particular field that they're working in. So again, I respect your answer you gave previously about the separation, but do you think on some level, maybe with responsibility again, do you feel it hits different when you are a fan who's been asked to do that? And do you feel any extra kind of duty to the
Mm.
story or to the genre?
You do feel a bit of responsibility in that regard for sure, because as if you're like being a fan, but also having to put that layer of professional behavior on top of it means that it comes back to just wanting to do the brand well. Like you want to do Doctor Who, something that you've loved for many years, you want to do it well, and you want to make sure that your contribution is good. And you don't want to do something that will necessarily just you look back on and you feel like could have been better, really. That was my one chance. Blew it. You don't want to feel like that. Uh, so you do have this degree of responsibility to Doctor Who itself, or anything that you've really in any field that you've been very lucky to do officially licensed stuff for. You It is really something that cannot be taken for granted, and is definitely something that you just need to really like just lock in, I guess, in a sense, and just I guess you just got to try your best, and that's all you really can do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you've got lots of guiding eyes around you to help you out. So yeah, just do your best.
I don't think anybody could accuse you of not doing your best. I think you
I
do
hope not.
fantastic work.
I really
It's, fan-
try.
it's obvious you can see how much work you put into everything you do, so it's wonderful. I suppose I've got this as a bit of a standard question now, and I don't like to ask standard questions, but so many of the people that come on and bless us with their time are so multi-talented, and you're no exception to that. I mean, in the past, I think you composed your own theme music for the Purple Doctor, didn't you? And
Yes.
yeah, you've enjoyed your acting, writing, and now you're working on the production side as well. As your career is evolving, do you find yourself naturally channeling energies into one area more than others, or are you quite content, quite happy to develop in as many directions as possible?
I'm very much an open book. I'm happy to try new things all the time. I'm don't like to be stagnant. So, I mean, I'm always adore doing acting, with playing the Purple Doctor. That has been a joy to do. And I enjoy writing, whether it be official or fan stuff. And I enjoy producing as well. I mean, I like everything I do. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't do it. But I just really like to push myself in directions. There are many, many crafts that I haven't quite pursued yet, even further. Like, for one thing, I would love to learn the art of Photoshop. That is something I would love to do because I see so many of the Big Finish covers and just like, man, I wish I could do that. But the best I can do is just some slapped on PNGs and a logo, and it just looks crap. So I just really like it. There's stuff that I need to teach myself eventually when I get a chance, really. I mean, I say that, but I'm also a bit of a procrastinator when it comes to said new things. So maybe I'll do it in my 50s or my 60s. Who knows? I'll learn eventually.
I don't doubt it at all. I was going to ask you, is there something in particular you wanted to do? But I think Photoshop's a good one. I'm totally on board with that. I'd love to do some of those covers.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for answering that, and I'm going to sign off there.
Well, gents, you've been fantastic as usual, and Dominic, you've been Outstanding. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. You've been absolutely brilliant. And then, what can I say? On that bombshell, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from me.
And it's good night from me.
And it's good night from me. Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure.